Hey YouTube, Joe Walker here at Def Digits Guitar Lessons in Seattle. Today I'm recording a live lesson for my student Jordan, who is missing today. It's Halloween. I don't know why he might be missing. But I wanted to show Jordan some things about the major scale and how he can use it for creating chords and then harnessing those chords and those concepts for songwriting and for analyzing the songs that he's learning. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. First, I'm just going to show you how to play a major scale on an open string, and this will be our starting point. So you can do this on any fretted instrument. You can do it on banjo, ukulele, guitar, on any string of the guitar. It doesn't matter what string. Just start from the open string, and we're gonna count up frets to make this scale. Open string, then 2nd fret, then 4th fret, then 5th, 7th, 9th, 11th fret, and 12th fret. And saying it in a different way, we'll say in whole steps and half steps. A whole step is an interval of 2 frets, and a half step is an interval of 1 fret. So we start from our open string. Now that you've just heard it, the open string sounds like home. Like when you just heard all of this, that open string sounds like everything's revolving around that. That is our root note for this scale. So that's our starting point. Then we go up a whole step to fret 2, a whole step to fret 4, half step to fret 5, whole step to fret 7, whole step to fret 9, whole step to 11, and then half step to fret 12. That feels like home too because that's an octave higher than the original. Those are our root notes for the scale, and we could keep going from there. We just duplicate the same thing that we just had. We did whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. It's a little easier to remember if you say it really fast. From the open, whole, half, whole, half. So we've got 2 wholes and a half, 3 wholes and a half. From that 12th fret, if you had enough frets, you could keep going. And you can actually do this. You don't have to start from the open string. You can start anywhere. And wherever you start and apply that pattern, your starting point is going to be the root note of that scale. So if we started from the 12th fret and we went whole, half, whole, half. I ran out of frets, but you get the picture. You can start wherever you want. So let's start writing those things down. What we have is, from our starting point, from the root note, we have a whole step. We'll make W for whole step. Whole, half, whole, half. And the notes we had, we're not going to write down the fret numbers because, like I said, you can start from any fret on any string on any instrument. So this will be not specific to any particular notes, not specific to any frets. This will be relative to wherever you start. So our first note, we can call that the root note, or we can call it the 1. We're going to label all these notes with numbers. So 1 is the root note. Then we've got note number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, 6, 7, and then we get back to the 1 again. So the really useful places to keep track of are these half steps. So right here, between 3 and 4 is a half step, and between 7 and 1 is a half step. So we could keep going on this in either direction. If we keep going higher, we get the same formula again, whole, half, whole, half, and we would go from 1, a whole step to 2, whole step to 3, etc. We could also go lower. The next step lower would be a half step down to 7. So when you're using this scale, you're not always just using like from 1 up to the next 1. You could be going down lower than that 1, depending on where you start. If you start just on any fret in the middle of the guitar, it's easy to go lower from there. If you start in the open string, you can't go lower on that string, for example. Okay, so now let's take some actual notes as examples. And we're going to use the C major scale. We're going to make C our 1. These are just examples. We could take any note as our 1, and then all the rest of the notes follow as long as we follow the formula. If we start with C as our 1, then all of the rest of the notes come out as natural notes, not sharps or flats, not any of the black keys. If we're playing the piano, they'd be all white keys. It comes out as C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and back to C again. So again, the half steps are E to F and B to C, 3 to 4 and 7 to 1. So if you did this on the piano, you knew what the notes are on the piano, you would find that E and F don't have a black key between them. They're a half step apart, and B and C don't have a black key between them. On the guitar, if we map out all of these notes, we find if we start on a C, that C right there, first fret on the B string, we apply that formula, we can go C, whole step to D, whole step to E, half step to F, whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, half step to C. If we start on any other note, we end up with some sharps or some flats in there. We have to manipulate the names of the notes to make it work. So that's why the C major scale is a good starting point. So to get some chords out of this, what we need to do is take one note as a root note of a chord. C is the root of this whole scale, but we need to take one and say this is going to be the root of a chord from the scale. We're going to take C as the first root of a chord. When we take a root of a chord, we're going to take that note, skip the next one and take this one, skip the next one and take this one. And that will be our chord. 3 notes will make the chord. So we're going to take C, skip the D, we get an E, skip the F, we get a G. So those 3 notes are C, E, and G. This seems very arbitrary right now, but you'll see how it works to form chords. So the first chord that we get is C, E, G. If I play that on the guitar, C, I'm going to use this C down here. 5th fret, 5th string, 3rd fret, and E is D string, 2nd fret, and G is open G string. That's a C chord, C major chord. And if we keep going, we can get the next C, that's here, and we can get the next E, that's here. And that is the open C chord that you know, using just those 3 different notes, C, E, and G. Next, we can follow that same formula from a bunch of different starting points. So we can start on D, and we get D, skip over E, we get F, skip over G, we get A. So that's D, F, A. That would be some kind of D chord. We don't know from just looking at this if it's major or minor, and we don't care yet. We're just going to write down the names of all these chords and then try them out, see how they sound. And we can figure out if they're major or minor by looking at the distances between them. We'll get there. So we start with E, we get E, G, B. Start with F, we get F, A, C. Start with G, we get G, B, D. Start with A, we get A, C, E. And I didn't mention this, but we've already gone over the border. We go from A to C, then from C over to E. The notes just keep on going, so we don't. This is just for illustration. It doesn't stop here. It goes infinitely in both directions. It just keeps cycling through. We got A, C, E, and then finally we have B, D, F. Those are the 7 chords that you get built off of the notes right within the scale. The 7 basic chords. Lots of other types that you can get. So the sound of those, that's C, E, G. Here's D, F, A. Here's E, G, B. Here's F, A, C. Here's G, B, D. Here's A, C, E. And here's B, D, F. Which way do I want to do this? I'll do it this way. So now looking at the distances between the notes, we can figure out if they are major or minor. So we can start with this one. We know that one's major just because it lined up with a C major chord. How do you know that's major? Maybe just because your guitar teacher told you or the internet told you. We don't know. So the way to define a major chord, when you've got it mapped out in 3 notes like this, you've got your root note and then 2 other notes. C is the root of the chord, and then E and G. So what we get is, we look at C to E, that's 2 whole steps. We look at E to G, that's a different interval. That's a half step and a whole step. E to G is a step and a half. C to E is 2 steps. So we're going to call these by their actual names, even though I haven't explained all of the interval names yet. Where am I going to define this? Let's see here. Big M3 will be, that's a major third, and we'll call that whole step, whole step. That will be our 2 whole steps. Big M3. Little M3, like that, will be our minor third, and that is a step and a half. So that would be a whole step and a half step, or the other way around, a half step and a whole step. So if we look at the intervals between these notes, I'm going to switch pens. I think the other one's better. If we look at the intervals between C and E and G, C to E is a major third. And E to G is a minor third. Now, if we do that same treatment to all the rest of these, they're all going to be one of those 2 types. When you skip a note in between, you're either doing a step and a half or you're doing 2 whole steps. So let's look at D to F, that's a minor third. F to A is a major third. E to G is a minor third. G to B is a major third. F to A is a major third. A to C is minor third. G to B is major third. B to D is minor third. Isn't this stuff exciting? It will be. A to C is minor third. C to E is major third. We see a pattern so far. Everything's either major minor or minor major, except for this one. B to D is minor third, minor third. So let's see. I'm gonna put the names of each of the chords over here. So this chord was C, C major. If we have a major third and a minor third, that is the definition of a major chord. So any of the other ones that are like that, major third, minor third, major third, minor third, these 2 are also major chords. So that one is F major. This one is G major, like that. These ones, minor third to major third, that is the definition of a minor chord. So we have D minor is that chord, and E minor is that chord. Down here, also A minor. Finally, the last one is not major or minor. It's a diminished chord when you have 2 minor thirds like that. That's B diminished. That's the little sign for diminished, a little degree sign. Almost never gets used, depending on what you're playing. If you're playing pop music, you'll probably never see it. If you're playing jazz or classical music, you'll see it more often. You might also wonder, what if you get 2 major thirds? You can't get 2 major thirds in a row in the major scale, but other scales can allow that to happen. If you get 2 major thirds in a row, that's an augmented chord. We don't need it for this, though. So the last thing I want to show you is naming these chords with numbers just the same way that we had named the notes with numbers. So the notes get these Arabic numerals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Chords, when we number them, are going to get Roman numerals. So the C chord will be the 1 chord, Roman numeral 1. We're going to use capital Roman numeral for major, lowercase for minor. So that's the 1, the 2 chord, the 3 chord. Put this in a little box over here. The 4 chord, major. 5 major. 6 minor. And the 7, this one starts out as a minor because it has that minor 3 to start with, so we make it a lowercase, but we also put the little diminished symbol next to it for the 7 diminished chord. Those are your chords inside the major key. If you're playing a song in a major key, you are not limited to these chords. You can play other chords outside the key. They're generally used sparingly because if you start playing too many chords that are outside the key, if all of your chords are outside the key, it just sounds like you're in a different key. So you have to establish the context of being, yes, we're in this key, and then you're free to use these chords or outside chords. Just start by, if you're just getting into this, start by just using those chords. Just see what you can do with it. So in the key of C, all of these chords are pretty common ones that you might have seen in songs before, except for that B diminished. So we can safely leave that one out. So we've got C, is our 1 chord, D minor, is our 2 chord, E minor, the 3 chord, F, the 4 chord, and I do F like this, mute out the low E string, and then I go fret 3, 3, 2, 1, with 4 different fingers like that, and mute out the high E string. That's my F when I play it among a bunch of other open chords. So that's F, G, 5 chord, and A minor, the 6 chord. So you can make a lot of music with just those, with just the 1, 4, and 5 would get you thousands and thousands of songs just using those 3 chords in different keys. And then throw in the various minor chords, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, and the 6 chord. But mostly what you want to do to start to consume this information and internalize it is use that kind of language to analyze songs. When you're learning a new song and you want to try to memorize the chord progression, or you think the chords are really cool sounding and you want to be able to harness that and use it in your own songwriting, then figure out which chord is the home chord, the 1 chord, which one sounds like you have arrived at home, so you know what key you're in, and then do a kind of analysis like this. Make sure you're using whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Figure out what the other chords are in the key, and then figure out what the Roman numerals of the chords that you're playing, and then you can move that to different keys. You can manipulate it and change the order of the chords around, and you can sort of dig down to exactly what is the essence of the things that make it sound cool to you. So, for example, if it's a tune like, suppose I'm doing this, where I'm going. And I heard that and I said, whoa, what was that cool chord that just went da, da, da? Because everything else sounded pretty vanilla. I don't remember exactly what I played. It was C, F, and G. And if you want to sound vanilla, the 1, 4, and 5 chord would be a way to go. There's plenty of creative stuff you can do with those, but if you wanted to sound vanilla, that's the way to go. And then suddenly, in what I just played, there was that sound. And maybe you figure out from listening to it, oh, that's a minor chord, that's an F minor. But if you don't know all of this stuff, you don't know that F is the 4 chord, you won't be able to harness that and use it in some other context. So in this case, it's not just F minor, it's the 4 minor, and it's outside the key. That's why it grabbed your ear, is because you had established through the 1, 4, and 5 chords that this is the key, we're in this context, and then suddenly there was 1 chord that was just a little bit out of context. That note right there took you out of the key and then back into it when you landed on C. So that's just a little example of something that might catch your ear, and thinking of it in these terms would really, really help when you go to try to harness that and use it in your own songwriting. That's all for today. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Be happy to do another video on this kind of stuff if you enjoy it. click that like button, subscribe, all that stuff, and I will see you next time. See you guys.